Hello, ANCAP Radio, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Adam Carswell, and today we are joined uh, indirectly by the man, the myth, the legend, Dominic Frisby. We had some technical difficulties last minute in two ways, and I'm going to lay it out for you here. But before that, let me just go ahead and say welcome to the show. If you're with us live or listening on the recording, we go live here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're your home for anarcho-capitalism. Go ahead and check out our website, ancapradio.com. If you're not already on the email list, that's where you can do it. And who knows, whether you're listening now or within the next few days, the site will be live soon. And to get all updates on the launch of ancapradio.com, the best way to do it is to go to ancapradio.com now and drop your email there. So let's keep it moving. Again, hit the like button, the retweet button, and follow everyone up here on stage if you haven't already. We're joined by Dominic Frisby, the man who's going to show us the way to Ancapistan. Now, a few days ago, we received contact from Dominic saying, guys, I can't believe it. I got the timing wrong on this one. Is there any way we can move our recording or our session forward? Unfortunately, we were unable to do that, but we do have our co-founder and many times co-host here, Dave Henderson, who was actually able to hop on a Zoom with Dominic and record a phenomenal interview with him, which we are now going to stream live into our channel. The only thing is we are waiting for that interview to finish processing. They completed it not too long ago. In the beauty of live events, in the beauty of Zoom, the beauty of recording to the cloud, it's being processed right now, which is, it's funny, what does that even mean? I look at Zoom processing the recording. They're probably analyzing it to see whether or not we broke any rules with what we said, which is something we always think about here daily at ANCAP Radio. So, and let me say this too, rules that have not been made by ANCAPs. So as we wait for the processing of that recording, we are going to rock out here just with some more updates and things that are happening right now in the world of anarcho-capitalism. So probably one of the most polarizing moments in the last couple weeks was the speech by Javier Milei at the WEF. If you don't know what I'm talking about, new to this world, Javier Milei, I'd say one of the best ways is probably just to look him up on Twitter. On X, it's Javier, Javier Milei, Milei. A very, very interesting moment in the world of libertarianism and anarcho-capitalism. Me, if you're familiar with with the show, I am, and I can't help it, right? Maybe it's just the way I've been raised as an ANCAP, but always a skeptic, always speculating. So as great as it seems, I'm still not sold yet. I know a lot of ANCAPs that would shake their head at me if they heard that, but I just, I got to see more. We're off to a promising start, but I want to see some deliverables. So let us know in the thread, in the comments, if you know what I'm talking about. If you're familiar with Javier Milei, what are your thoughts on his presidency? Just go ahead and drop them below in the thread. Also, we had Luis Kenny as a guest on our show December 28th. So if you scroll through our feed, go back to the December 28th episode. It was really fascinating to get his take on everything that's going on in Argentina, because he's been, born and raised there. He gave a full 300, 400-year history on the country, made a lot of parallels as to how Argentina, very well could have been the United States as far as growth, flourishment, etc. Not that it hasn't experienced periods of that, but a lot of the immigration from Europe that the U.S. went through, Argentina experienced something similar, but through politics and other variables, it didn't quite turn out as promising, at least as it looks now until now. So Luis did a great job just recapping the Argentinian history, his background, what he thinks about politics there, what he thinks about politics around the world. As you know, here we always like to believe the less politics, the less government interference, the better for all involved. I'm just going to take a moment here to glance over and take a look at our recording with Dominic Frisby. So if you're not, and it's not still not ready yet. So if you're not familiar with Dominic, really interesting guy, and to our team, if you could drop a link to Dominic's Twitter profile below, and I'm sure we have it on our feed as well. But we want people to be able to go and check him out. Maybe a link to his YouTube channel as well. He also is a speculator, comedian, author. He does it all. Very, very, probably one of the most funny people we've had on the show. And if you check out his, which I believe Dave and him probably dove into this on their conversation, one of his top musical hits, "Show Me the Way to Ancapistan." He is a funny guy. I think he also has a song out called "I'm a White Man and I'm Sorry," and a lot of similar tunes to that vibe. So yeah, drop a link to Dominic's Twitter feed, his website. I believe he has a Substack as well. He's got quite a story. I know we had him on as a guest once before. It was interesting to hear his evolution as an ANCAP as well. He wasn't always the one who sees things he does the way he does now, as many of us can relate. And it was just cool to kind of hear his story and how he started going down these rabbit holes. And I believe he gives a lot of credit to our co-founder as well, Doug Casey, for kind of finally getting him to start thinking in a new direction. So what else? Well, the Guy Fawkes Award, we announced our first ever winner. If you're not familiar with Guy Fawkes, November 5th, he is the person who notoriously aimed to blow up the British Parliament, or I don't know if it would have been referred to as the British Parliament at the time, but someone who basically fought the system. And we want to make it clear, we're not here to necessarily to encourage people to do something quite as extreme, but we are here to reward those who go to battle against the state and win. And our first ever winner of the Guy Fawkes Award, brought to you by ANCAP Radio, is a guy named Aaron Seary. And we just did an episode last week to kind of commemorate him and everything that he's done to really help fight the battle for those who were forced to comply to certain mandates during COVID and vaccine injuries and all that. His body of work is just absolutely phenomenal. So we want to thank Reinhardt. I can't remember Reinhardt Appels for nominating Aaron, because otherwise we would not have known about all the work that he's doing. And we also congratulate Aaron and everyone on his team who we were able to interact with as we got him that award. Now, for context, those who are new to the Guy Fawkes Award, if you nominate someone who is fighting the state and winning, or in a battle where it looks like they're going to win, or even just fighting the state and they need support, we're willing to check out all nominations. To send that nomination in, you send it to ancapradio@gmail.com. And the winner of that award will receive $800 in Bitcoin, and the nominator, so you, the audience, whoever you nominate, if they win, you get 200 of that 1,000. So it's a $1,000 Bitcoin prize, 800 to the winner, 200 to the person who put the name in the hat. So if you want to nominate someone for the Guy Fawkes Award, it's as simple as sending an email to ancapradio@gmail.com. Just submit your name, who you're nominating, and maybe just a few sentences on why you're nominating them, what they're doing currently to fight the state, maybe some links, some context. The more information you can send, the better. But we are now accepting nominations for our February award winner. So ancapradio at gmail.com. Go ahead and nominate your Guy Fawkes Award potential winners. I'm going to take a glance over here now and see how we're doing on the recording with Dominic Frisby. That baby is it's still processing. And speaking of babies, I hear my son, my 15-month-old, he just woke up from his nap too. So it's a beautiful world of live events. Shifting gears from the Guy Fawkes Award, one thing that we always want to make sure we hammer home here is the ANCAP philosophy. And what perfect timing. I see now my co-host, Dave Henderson, is hopping on here to kind of help supplement this time as we wait for the session he did with Dominic to finish processing. We're going to share that with you guys. So, Dave, good to see you here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join me. Is there any takeaways from your conversation with Dominic that we're about to share that really stood out to you? And you are on mute right now, Dave. All right, we'll see if we can get him helped out there. But yeah, so Dave, just for context for those joining us now, Dave and Dominic sat down for about an hour and did a session on everything Dominic's working on right now. I'm sure some of his humor. Actually, I don't know in detail what they discussed, which is why I'm looking forward to this recording to finish processing so we can share it. So, Dave, if you are able to unmute, looks like we're we're going in and out there. So he'll be back in a moment. Another thing that I just want to bring to everyone's attention is, as we mentioned, ancapradio.com is going to be live soon. If you haven't checked out our other show, we do go live every Wednesday at noon with Strategic Wealth Preservation. They do their show Inside the Vault. If you haven't checked them out, a very good friend, very, very good colleague of ours. And as the station grows, we're open to bringing on new talent, new speakers, new shows, new sessions. So if you are someone who would like to self-nominate or nominate someone to do a show on ANCAP Radio, the end goal is for this to be a 24/7 live, ANCAP libertarian radio station. We're in conversation with a few other groups that have achieved this at a pretty high level, just in specific geographic areas, such as New Zealand. And I know it's looking like a very, very promising 2024, just from all the inside information that we're gathering now. It's a bit painful sometimes to be on here live and know all of the cool things that we're working on and not being able to disclose it with you guys. But we just want to thank everyone who does tune in here now and in the future, because we're really, really looking forward to this year. And that's not just me saying it. It's there's really some cool things in the work, especially merch. Let me say that as well. Merchandise. I know we've talked about it briefly here and there, but ANCAP Radio merchandise is coming to you this year, as well as, now this one I want to say potentially, but it's been one of the hottest topics for sure, cigars, ANCAP Radio cigars. I believe we have contact with the manufacturer. I don't want to go any further than that. But best believe when the ANCAP Radio cigars are ready, we will be ready to get those out to you. And all of this will be available on the website. So one moment as I check to see how we're doing on the recording processing. We are still processing. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. So, you know what? I'm going to ask our team here if they could. We've had some really solid guests on the show lately. So what I would like to do, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of our more recent episodes. But you know what? If you guys could go ahead and pull up the session with Luis Kenny, which we did on the topic of Javier Milei, just because we kicked off the show today, not intentionally, but on the topic of Javier Milei and especially his speech at the WEF lately, that's been pretty popular. If we could go ahead and queue up that episode that we did with Luis until the episode with Dominic is ready, I think that's going to be the most effective way to keep the ball rolling here today. So I'll give you a moment to get that pulled up, and then you can just give me the the high sign here on our back end once that's ready to go, and we will we'll pick up our episode with Luis Kenny, and then once we're ready for the newest episode, the hottest one, the freshest one with Dominic, we'll go ahead and bring that into the mix. So again, ladies and gents, we're going to play a recorded episode for the time being with Luis Kenny. We'll have some links below, but he is an attorney out of Argentina, very, very good friend of Doug Casey's. You could say one of his, I'm sure, I don't know if Doug would say this, but one of his homies, someone who he's been, he's known for years, and it was great to have Luis. He really came prepared more than any guest I think we've ever had. And it was, to me, most fascinating to hear what Argentina has gone through. Just as a country leading up until this moment, it makes all the sense in the world why why what's happening there today is happening there in particular. It's a country who's been, I guess all countries in a way are kind of waiting for an ANCAP savior. But isn't that an interesting, I feel like it's almost an oxymoron. I'm not an ANCAP savior. An ANCAP savior would make sense, but an ANCAP political leader, that's really the only area that I like to throw my question marks out and why I'm still a skeptic. So, I just got a notification that our recording with Dominic Frisby is ready. So we are actually going to probably get that one up. So I know I just teased you about the Javier Milei one. Well, let's take a look here. Boom, it is ready. So to our team, I'm going to share this with you right now, just in case you don't have the link. But it is ready to rock. And now we'll have the interview with Dominic Frisby going, I'd say probably easily within the next 10 minutes. All right. So, I've never had an opportunity to really talk about my anarcho-capitalist journey, my anarcho-capitalist story. So I guess this is it. When I think back to, it's funny, it's almost embarrassing, but I did keep it on my, I kept it on my Facebook as a reminder. And I know Facebook and anarcho-capitalism, that within itself is is an oxymoron, right? But excuse me, I kept this picture on my. I wanted to delete it when I first saw it pop up the other day, but I kept it on there as a reminder to even just show myself how far I had come. In whatever year it was when Trump got elected, I was living in the Washington D.C. area, from Ohio originally, and I figured out that if you pull the right strings, you can kind of get like tickets to the inauguration through your whoever it is, your representative, congressman, or whatever. So I pulled those strings, and I ended up getting 2 tickets to the inauguration back when Trump was coming into office. And I remember in that moment, I kind of felt like how I feel like a lot of people feel about Malay right now. I was like, wow, we have an entrepreneurial president who, from what I could see, he did this all with his own money. He broke the rules. He broke the system. Even when he did get in the office, I guess you could say, from what it looks like, he kind of ruined a lot of regulations that were unnecessary. But anyways, I look back to that moment where I went to the inauguration, and I remember just how hardcore, I'm gonna be honest, like how hardcore of a Trump fan I was. And I had no exposure to libertarianism. I had no exposure to anarcho-capitalism. I just knew left versus right, and I'm like, well, I'm definitely not a lefty. I knew that. Uh, and then, as the months went by, it became more and more evident, um, as much of a controversial figure as he was, that Trump really was no different than any other president that we had. The U.S. still went on to go and do anything that it would have done, whether it was Obama or I can't remember, Hillary, whoever it was. And then I started to realize this is just a machine that's functioning beyond the puppets that we see. That's even really how I feel about the WEF. I know a lot of people don't like Schwab and um, a lot of the other puppets there, but I'm of the belief that there's puppets behind the puppets. So anyways, the only reason I came to that realization was because I ran into a guy named Jeff Berwick on YouTube who said that he went on his ANCAP journey because of Doug Casey handing him the book Creature from Jekyll Island, like 2 decades before I figured out who Jeff was. So that was really my awakening, was finding Berwick on YouTube, and listening to what he had to say. And I remember, as a pretty patriotic American at the time, getting so like angry and offended sometimes at some of the things Jeff would say. He would call all Americans like brainwashed slaves. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm not brainwashed. I'm not a slave. And then I just realized, like, he's right. Like, so many, not just Americans, but people around the world are brainwashed slaves. And it's our job to, I would say it's not even our job to wake them up. It's just our job to live our best life and hopefully change some along the way. So I'm getting the thumbs up from our team. We're ready to rock here. But yeah, that was my genesis story for libertarianism, and more importantly, anarcho-capitalism. And I would say, even most importantly, just living life to my best ability on my own terms. Was I found our good friend Jeff Berwick on YouTube and just kept going down the rabbit holes. And here we are, ANCAP Radio, looking for a phenomenal year of 2024. So our interview with the legendary Dominic Frisby, again, links are down below in the thread. Check him out. He is just an absolute funny man and a very, very talented writer as well. We're going to go ahead and play his interview with Dave Henderson, our co-founder and co-host here oftentimes on ANCAP Radio. So to our team, go ahead, play the clip, or play the interview between Dominic Frisby and Dave Henderson of ANCAP Radio. And I'll take this moment as we're getting it completely finally ready to go. I'll take this moment to say, if you are tuning in live or on the replay, thank you for your listenership. Make sure you hit the like button, the follow button. Most importantly, retweet this space. We want to get in front of as many eyes and ears as possible. Because like I said, hey, we're not trying to force anybody to wake up, or whatever the metaphor you want to use is. We're just looking to live our best lives, lead by example, and for those who are intrigued by it along the way, get them to go ahead and replicate and do the same thing. It's always the best way to approach it. Don't tread on me, right? That's the original meaning of it. So I'm looking at our team. It's playing. So to our team, the reason it's playing and we're not hearing it is because you are on mute. So make sure we unmute. And here we go, Dominic Frisby and Dave Henderson of ANCAP Radio. And we're just we gotta love the live events. I'm gonna keep going here. Team, until you confirm with me, because I don't think I'm not seeing the audio come through at the moment. So, boy, oh boy, have we built up the hype today. Dominic Frisby and Dave Henderson of ANCAP Radio. Really, really solid interview coming up here. We're just waiting on that audio to transmit from our buddy ANCAP Sam's account. We see we got you up here as a speaker. We're not getting any audio right now. And on that note, I'll take it as another opportunity to just remind everyone, if you would like to nominate someone for the Guy Fawkes Award, send an email to ancapradio@gmail.com. The winner of that award receives, in total, it's a $1,000 reward in Bitcoin, $800 to the winner, $200 to the nominator. We're going to announce our February Guy Fawkes Award winner soon. So get those nominations in. we're troubleshooting right now. And I think, to our other team, if you're able to do it how we do it with SWP, then maybe go for that. So Twitter crashed. All right, I see I'm getting the messages here. Give me I'm going to keep going on my my ANCAP journey, my ANCAP story until I get the thumbs up from the team. So, like I said, Berwick was really the first person that I started listening to that opened my eyes and my mind to questioning a lot of things, to the point where, I'm also someone who originally was all in on the traditional story of 9/11. I remember in 2013 or 2014, I saw a story of someone saying it was an inside job, and just thinking to myself how crazy that person is. Funny to look a decade later at where I'm at now, and I'd say I basically believe the exact opposite based on the information and resources that I've been able to get access to. So, I mean, that's one right there. Even just looking at Building 7, I don't even know how. I mean, it's like, I can't even believe people still argue that it played out the way that we've been told it played out by mainstream media. Right now, we did a show with Michael Roberts here on ANCAP Radio. I want to say mid to late September. It was really interesting to hear his take on things through the lens of someone who's very, very active in the aviation industry. So, I'm just checking here. Yeah, so getting his take as someone who's in aviation it was very good. So if you're tuned in live or on the replay, I'd say go to ANCAP Radio's Twitter feed, scroll down to, again, like mid to late September, and put that one in the queue with Michael Roberts. That was one of my favorite episodes we've done. So, again, after getting exposure to a lot of things that Jeff was talking about on his YouTube channel, he's got Anarchast, which was a great show. And then also just being surrounded more by people who think this way, I started to see through the BS. And then I would say by the time COVID hit, I had seen it's crazy because, right, it was basically only a period of 3 or 4 years from my awakening until COVID. And I'll never forget when COVID first hit. I immediately knew that it was BS, and I'll never forget feeling like in my immediate circle being the only person who thought that. And there was no science or whatever. There was zero evidence on anything, so it was purely a gut feel. But I just remember the way everyone was freaking out, the way the world was shutting down, just all the chaos, and just everything from just really in the year 2020. But I'll never forget my birthday is March 18th. I'll never forget being alone on my birthday, because like there's nothing else to do, and thinking that, man, am I the only one that thinks this is bullshit? I'll never forget that. Now, thankfully, in that moment, what started happening is little groups, especially on the internet, of people started congregating, and meeting and having conversations similar to the ones that we have here on the show in a way that we had never seen before. And so I'm actually really grateful for COVID for that. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, I would have never met my wife. Like, so many really awesome things happened in my life. So that time period, even though it was crazy, it was definitely beneficial. I'd say more than most people realize, but it was also interesting to live through that with the exposure to anarcho-capitalist principles coming into it. It's the first time that I ever went through like a major international, I don't even know what you want to call it, a major international BS story that I had the ANCAP lens on. So who knows what we got around the corner now. Obviously there was, I'm trying to think since COVID what the biggest deal was. I guess you could follow the memes to figure that out. It was Ukraine, it was Israel for a while. I guess it is kind of still Israel. It's interesting, I guess right now in the world.
All right, well,
hey.
Dominic, you're okay.
All right. I think, all right, awesome. We got it. Fill in the blank for me, by the way, on that. What's the next big scandal? They're planning one, right? There's going to be something that comes in the news, I'd say probably within the next couple months, that is on that Israel-Ukraine COVID level. I guess it's the election year in the U.S. But anyways, we'll take that conversation for another time. I'm happy that we got this opportunity. Now I know what to do with whenever we have issues going live. I'm just going to talk about myself. I hope you guys like that. All right. So we are now going to get to our interview with Dominic Frisby and Dave Henderson, which was recorded today, only like an hour, 2 hours ago. So this is fresh out of the oven, so fresh that I don't even know what they talk about. So I'm really looking forward to it. Dominic Frisby, check out his Twitter and all of his stuff below in the links. And to our team, go ahead and take it away.
I cannot take it anymore. I've heard of somewhere better, with no government at all, just anarchy, free trade, and natural law. Oh, show me the way to Ancapistan. I need to go as quick as I can. I've got a feeling I'll be a fan. I want to go to Ancapistan. Show me the way to Ancapistan. Truth, love and freedom, strawberry flan. No one gives orders in Ancapistan, except mum and dad and sometimes your nan. The time has come for us to make a stand with our anarcho-capitalist clan. Together let us stick it to the man. No income tax, no bureaucrat plans, no war, no inflation and nothing that's planned. No passports, no cronies, no government waste, no borders, no orders, no money debased. Anarchy, peace and freedom come first. No gods and no masters and nothing coerced.
Who builds the roads in Ancapistan? Who runs the trains? I don't understand. What about healthcare? Tell me the plan.
Markets provide in Ancapistan.
How do we get to Ancapistan?
It lies along the yellow brick road. Narnia to the east, Atlantis to the west. The path is lit by Bitcoin nodes.
We're so much bigger in Ancapistan. Ancapistan. Your penis will grow in Ancapistan.
No hair loss problems in Ancapistan. Ancapistan is our promised land. I do not want to have a fight. I don't want culture wars. I just want to get on with my own stuff. Respectfully and peacefully, will you leave me alone? The West is done. I think I've had enough. Oh, show me the way to Ancapistan. Guide me to freedom, invisible hand. There are no statists, life there is so grand. We own ourselves in Ancapistan.
Oh, how cool is that? Show me the way to Ancapistan. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Dominic. I'm Dave Henderson. This is ANCAP Radio, and it is my great pleasure to welcome both fundamentally the poet laureate of Ancapistan, Dominic Frisby. Good evening, Dominic. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Dave. Pleasure.
I was it's early in the morning in New Zealand, but I was reading this morning, of course, about the massive protests in Argentina that are happening today. Well, the Guardian was hyping them up, I should say, as you can imagine. But the only Ancapistan bright light on the horizon at the moment is Argentina.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. It's amazing that we went to war with Argentina whenever it was over the Falkland Islands, maybe 40 years ago or something, 45 years ago. But it's amazing that they've now got Thatcher.
Yeah, there was the great irony. Of course, they were quoting Nigel Farage.
Oh, were they?
Who was describing Milei as Thatcher on steroids.
Yes.
Which is not an accurate description of Milei. He's something from everything I can see that's way beyond Thatcher, and delightfully so. I mean, anyone who's running for president of a country and dresses up in a suit, calling himself Captain ANCAP, is got to be a hero in that books, doesn't he?
Yeah, I like the fact that he went to Davos. He flew by Lufthansa. He didn't get a private jet.
How cool is that? I know. I assume he went business class. I mean, it might have been quite something if he had flown economy, but just to travel on public transport is seriously cool. Dominic, I just want to introduce you to those.
I was just going to say, I want to go to Argentina as soon as possible. In fact, one of the things I'm looking at is potentially trying to make a documentary about him. What interests me is that like we're in these times where everything gets conflated, and there were loads of people when he got elected that described him. I mean, there were headlines in the BBC and the Guardian and so on who described him as far right libertarian. Yeah, and then surely that's because far right to me is more government, not less. Yeah, and then I play football every week. In fact, after this, in about 3 hours time, I'm going to play football, and all the people on my football WhatsApp chat are all deluded statists, but they say that Milei is a fascist, and I'm like, I don't think you know what the definition of fascism is and what a libertarian is, and it's just incredible how. And they said he was fascist because he got rid of some human rights group. And 20,000 people have gone missing in Argentina. And I'm thinking, well, if there was a human rights group and 20,000 people have gone missing, they're not doing a very good job. So maybe they should have got rid of them. But it's incredible how fascist and far right have been conflated with libertarian and ANCAP when they're both at opposite ends of the political compass.
Yeah, indeed. And it's the reason why all these definitions are so critically important. And all of that flows fundamentally from a socialist or collectivist media that sees anyone who's not advocating some form of some what they would call decent form of collectivism, they instantly become fascist. Anyone who wants to dismantle any aspect of the state becomes a fascist. And and of course we saw it with Trump, didn't we? Where Trump was and still is labeled a fascist, and I regularly challenge people and say, well, before you use that appellation, just give me a definition. And of course they struggle and say, a whole bunch of nonsense. How, oh well, he wants to get rid of this and do that, and of course
I'm the same. I'm like, every time I have this conversation, I'm like, define what a fascist is, and then we can see if we both understand the word. But it's every word. It's fascist, far right, even inflation.
Right.
It's come to mean something totally different from what it originally meant.
Yeah, hasn't it just? And it's this aberration of language and in particularly key terms that ends up just totally confusing the debate and the discussion. And you can't have a rational, intelligent discussion unless you're actually on point with these concepts and terms. It's fascinating. I don't read The Guardian very often, but the only newspaper behind a paywall that I subscribe to is the Daily Telegraph, which I still enjoy immensely. But occasionally I'll horsewhip myself by reading The Guardian. And so the story this morning was these protests, and they were quoting someone who had all those initials LBTQ RFI plus after their names, who was saying just how terrible it was that Milei was. We had an unequal society, and Milei was going to make it more unequal, and the only solution was the state making it more equal. and it's just, I have a view at the moment that no one over the age of 25, under the age of 25, has any understanding whatsoever how wealth is created. And it's just this notion that the state can somehow conjure up wealth and sort everything out. That is just shows an abysmal reflection of our education systems and the media. So,
yeah, I mean, there are lots of kids who understand that you have to work hard and make things, but it's definitely it's a common problem that imbues government with too much ability to solve all these problems, and without realizing that it is in fact the problem. It's partly a function of democracy and governments making promises in order to get elected, but I mean, there are so many problems.
Yeah, indeed there are. Dominic, I just want to pause for a moment, just if for our listeners' benefit, is if you haven't come across Dominic before, you must. And in particular, Dominic is the producer of a number of wonderful comedic songs. Is that the best way of describing your YouTube clips, Dominic?
Yeah.
And the wonderful one we played at the beginning here. And goodness me, there must be 20 of those that you've got up.
I've done 4 albums and a live album and an EP of unbroadcastable stuff. There's the unbroadcastable stuff's not on the internet. You have to come direct to me to get that.
Oh, do you? Okay, that's great. And of course, Dominic is quite a sort of a freakish combination of comedian and a financial commentator. And Dominic, you'll be pleased to see that I'm sitting here. I've been, of course, it's summer in New Zealand, and I have had a couple of quieter weeks, and I've this has been top of my reading list, which I'm well into, which is Dominic's wonderful book called Daylight Robbery: how tax shaped our past and will change our future, which I thoroughly recommend to anyone who's interested at all in our philosophy, because it is a wonderful background, one could say, just on the insanity of taxation, and fundamentally, no matter which way you look at it, how you cut it, the destructive nature and force of taxation. Dominic's also the author of a book on Bitcoin, which Dominic I also have, and it's in my reading pile here, but haven't read yet. What year did you write that, by the way?
2013.
Okay, so that you probably are due to put out another Bitcoin book, are you? Or
do you know what? I love Bitcoin, and I still own some, not nearly as much as I would like to, of course, but I have a bit. I got hacked way back in the day. Otherwise, I'd own a lot more. But the tech, it's just moving so fast, particularly all the altcoins and the crypto coins. It's a full-time job keeping up. And, I just feel like such an old boomer. So
yeah,
I just sort of recommend, I'm not even a boomer, but, my mum's a boomer, but I feel like one when it comes to talking about, the tech is so fast. Yeah. So I just sort of hold my Bitcoins and advocate Bitcoin and non-state money and voluntary alternatives and deflationary currencies and all that kind of thing. And but I leave the sort of crazy speculation to the kids. So that's why I'm not writing another book about Bitcoin. I'm actually writing another book about gold at the moment. But I just feel like, and I was slightly obsessed with who Satoshi Nakamoto was. This is 2013, 2014, yeah. And I've kind of, I think whoever he is, he's dead now anyway. But so yeah, I don't think I have a great deal to add to the Bitcoin argument. That's why I'm not writing about that.
And just what's your prognosis? Let's go forward just even 2030. What is Bitcoin now more widely adopted as a form of currency? Am I going into my local coffee shop here in New Zealand and buying a coffee out of my Bitcoin wallet?
Well, I'm extremely bullish about Bitcoin. When I say I'm not writing a new book about it, I write about it all the time in my newsletter, The Flying Frisbee. And so I've been writing a lot about the ETFs recently. And at the moment, the ETFs almost to the day are copying the gold and silver ETFs in that they rose. There was a lot of excitement about gold and silver going into the launch of the gold ETF in 2004, the silver ETF in 2006. Probably the Ethereum ETF will be more like the silver, and the Bitcoin ETF will be more like the gold. But in any cases, a few days after the ETF was launched, gold made a high, and then it fell for the next 2 months. It fell 10%. A 10% fall in gold would probably be a 30 or 40% fall in Bitcoin. So, and then it kind of went sideways for 6 months, and then it was 9 or 10 months before it made went and challenged its old highs and went above them. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if Bitcoin does something similar. We've had these, buy the rumor, sell the news and all that. Bit of a correction, then sideways, and before it breaks out to new highs. But the bottom line is that the ETFs allowed for so much new capital to come into the gold and silver markets. They were a huge driver of those bull markets, and there's no reason why they shouldn't do the same for Bitcoin, particularly with the over 50s who are worried about wallets and all the security and all the tech and so on. If they can just buy it through their broker, and the 60s over 50s have got a lot of capital, retirement accounts and so on. So I'm very bullish about Bitcoin, but I'm less bullish about we're going to walk into our local coffee shop and buy coffees with it, because that's not what it's for. It's money for the internet. I mean, you will be able to buy your coffee with it, but I still think we'll use national currencies for those kind of transactions. It's money for the internet, and it's become a sort of digital storage vehicle as well as a digital means of exchange. And I'm also very excited about micropayments generally as a sector. And there's so many. It's just a huge economy that's waiting to happen, and you just can't do it with national currencies. Partly because they're not borderless. If I want to send you 10p, it's just impossible with a national currency. With me in England and you in New Zealand, the banking costs are too high. But you know, with the Lightning Network and all that kind of thing, it's possible. And so, you know, or somebody, I like to envisage, you know, for content creators, tips and micro donations, and there's so many ways where the micro payments can take off. And I see one example being likes. Like, instead of, you know, liking a tweet or liking a Facebook post or liking an article or something, if you can like it and tip it, you know, 1/20th of a penny, well, that's a negligible amount to you.
Yes.
But if the guy then gets 1 million likes at a tenth of a penny, well, you know, what is that? 1 million likes at a tenth of a penny would be what, $10,000 or something?
Yes,
so it's not an insubstantial amount of money. So there's a huge economy waiting to happen in micropayments, and it's just not possible with national currencies, because they're just not divisible enough, and they're you know, they're limited by their borders. So once Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies find use there, and everyone has them and everyone uses them for that, then I start thinking that, you know, I sort of buy into the hyper Bitcoinization theory, which is not that necessarily that the you know, the gold bugs always used to say the dollar will be inflated into oblivion, and I think the dollar will probably lose another 90% of its purchasing power over the next 30 or 40 years. The pound has lost, by the way, just since 2020, a third of its purchasing power, since 2020 to inflation. So so, you know, that will continue, but they're not necessarily going to be hyperinflated into oblivion. They'll just keep gradually losing their purchasing power. But there could be a rush into Bitcoin as an alternative. And, you know, the ETFs are part of that. Micropayments are part of that. It's all just generally growing. So I'm very excited about the sector. I like it a lot.
Okay. No.
Having talked about all of that, I probably should go and write a book. But anyway. But I'm a little bit iffy in the short term, just because of what happened with gold and silver ETFs. But longer term, yeah, very bullish.
Right. Dominic, last time we spoke, you gave us a delightful first-hand account of what looked like a nascent tax revolution in London with ULIS.
Oh yeah.
Is that I follow it more enthusiastically as a consequence of what's been happening there, and I take great joy in opening a UK newspaper and seeing that someone's hacked down a camera pole or scaled one and whipped the camera or something, which is all delightful stuff. Is that gaining any traction at the moment?
I think probably around about the time we spoke, in terms of media perception, that was probably the peak of the market in terms of coverage. I think it's still going on. Obviously, the security's greater. There's been a couple of arrests made, but the lady who irons my shirt came around this afternoon, dropped a load of shirts off, and she just said between her house, which is 3 or 4 miles away, and mine, just all the traffic lights. It's not just the ULEZ cameras, it's the whole traffic lights have all been cut down. So the roads are chaos. I'm not necessarily advocating, I mean, you know, it's funny that people are cutting traffic lights down until you caught the traffic jam or a traffic accident because somebody's cut the traffic lights down. So but the you know, I support tax rebellion.
Yeah, indeed, and far be it for us.
And our mayor, London Mayor's such an arsehole. You know, anything that inconveniences him is good in my book.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very healthy. So it's still there, it's still happening, and obviously the people who initiated it still have some enthusiasm for maintaining that minor revolt.
Yeah, I'd be interested, and of course it's a far right fascist tax rebellion.
There you go. As all tax revolts throughout history have been, haven't they, Dominic?
Yeah, exactly. Robin Hood was far right. Spartacus,
he was a fascist.
Gandhi was far right.
There you go. And the other thing that's obviously I've been following and has caught my attention is this appalling thing with the British postal system and the postmasters.
Yeah, isn't that bad?
which was just revolting. And I hadn't realized that had actually even occurred and what had gone on there.
Well, what's bad about that is it happened quite a long time ago. And loads of people were saying, look, you got to do something about this. And the government turned a blind eye. The media, broadly speaking, turned a blind eye. And then ITV, which is one of our TV channels, made a drama about it and broadcast that. And it was only the publicity that came with the drama that got the government to take action. But it's really bad. You know, it was a real case of computer says no. And the prosecutors refused to acknowledge any other possibility but their data. And like pretty much every government or government-related IT system in this country, in all recorded history, it was bogus and the data was wrong. And people, you know, they had their careers ruined. They had their wealth taken from them. They had their businesses taken from them. And many cases, people died from the stress. Imagine the humiliation and just the injustice, the horrible feeling you get inside when you're the victim, when you know you've behaved well and you're being penalized, even though you've behaved well. It's a horrible feeling. And, you know, so there's a lot of compensation to be paid. But what annoys me is, you know, at the moment, they haven't decided who's paying the compensation, who pays for it. It's going to be the taxpayer who pays for it. So it just annoys me. That's why one of the reasons I'm a libertarian is why should the taxpayer be held to account for something that has nothing to do with him?
That's right.
What's going to happen.
Yeah, no. And so
you know, the state businesses are incompetent. And then when they're incompetent, people sue them. And then the taxpayer has to pay the brunt. So as well as funding an incompetent business, he then has to pay the cost of the incompetence. You know, it's such a horrible cycle.
That's right. It is just tangentially. You know, it's always been for me one of the things, if I can initiate, and you know, occasionally through one channel or another, one has the ability to drive or see some initiation of change, would be to, you know, to recast the whole concept of misfeasance in public office. You know, because and I've pursued the state personally for misfeasance, but the threshold is so high that you seldom, and anyone seldom ever succeeds. You have to prove that this person absolutely went out with the determination to do X, Y, Z, which constitutes the misfeasance.
And you want justice, but you've only got one life, and you're dealing against the blank wall of, you know, you send your email in or whatever, and somebody's got to read it and go, can I be bothered to reply to that? And you know, there's a million other emails that have come in. And, you know, I've only got one life, and I'd rather spend it creating things rather than getting into fights, even if the principle behind the fight is right. You know, there's only so many battles you can fight. You got to pick your battles and pick how you spend your energy. And, you know, fighting the state, broadly speaking, is just unproductive. You're better off subverting it. But in any case, you know, I just think Western Europe, the states too, I just don't. The only thing that can destroy the state in Western Europe is the collapse of the money system. And it's just, I mean, I don't know, there's too much vested interest to keep it afloat, I think. I can't see it happening. Western Europe's got so many problems. There's no growth. The only growth we have is you know, by importing cheap foreign labor from abroad. And in doing that, we're destroying our own traditions, our own cultures and all the rest of it. And we've made so many mistakes, and the government doesn't do what the people want, and you know, the system of government is wrong, the system of state is wrong. I don't know where to start. And I guess at the end of the day, we've all got to move to Argentina.
Yeah, indeed. and sit back with the popcorn and watch the collapse of Western civilization. So but
I've got to say, I had an Argentinian girlfriend a long time ago, and I've stayed in touch with her ever since. And you know, she's quite a successful actress and film director out there, and so she's part of that artistic culture. And like, I was sort of opening the champagne on Twitter when Milei got elected, and
of course,
I was sort of, you know, atting her in and going, ha ha ha, bad luck and that kind of thing. But she genuinely is horrified
No.
Millet. She is absolutely horrified. And I don't know if we've even fallen out, but she's you know, she was really cross with me and sent me some angry messages and stuff. And you know, it's bizarre. He's another Trump. He in the way that he divides people, and you either love him or hate him.
Yeah.
And it's you know, it's quite sad, really.
Indeed.
But
no,
anyway.
no, it is. But and I often, you know, I often reflect on Trump, because you're right. That's the key issue with Trump is the division, and how divided everyone has become over it and taken sides. And good God, I mean, even in New Zealand, I've got a staff member, and he comes. We sit down for meetings, and you know, if it's a 1-hour meeting, 55 minutes of it is him going nuts about Trump and how outrageous he is, and me flaying around, actually defending Trump, notwithstanding the fact that that Trump is some considerable distance from being a libertarian. But at least he's
like, every time I watch Trump, he just makes me laugh. There's something intrinsically funny about him. So he's obviously got some kind of magnetic appeal that either seduces you or alienates you. But he makes me laugh, and I like his irreverence, and I like the fact that he upsets all the right people. But if I was actually to break down his, you know, I'm a sound money guy, and he's a loose money guy, and for me, sound money's at, you know, loose money's at, you know, fiat is at the heart of our problems, and he's a loose money guy. So, and I get why he is, but and he's also a lot cleverer than he makes out he is. But so in terms of his actual, you know, and I think his foreign policy, some of it, the stuff he's got right, certainly better than Biden. And you know, he's accused of being the warmonger, but I don't think he is. But you know, he got talking with North Korea, which was pretty big achievement in his time for an American president. So he's to be, and there's only so much a president can do. But you know, do you blame Trump for Trump, or do you blame the 20 years of Obamas and Clintons for Trump?
And the fact is that I often try and relate to people is, you know, Jefferson was the third president of the United States, elected in 1800, and when he was out being elected, he would literally do street corner meetings, standing on a soapbox, you know, and the huge difference is, of course, is just the growth of the state. You know, the state is so significant now, and it has so much involvement in people's lives, that they are going to be sitting there picking sides, and you live in this dual system, which you have in the UK, you have in New Zealand, you have in the United States, and most jurisdictions, where, you know, so you're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. Now, I'm neither, and nor are you, no doubt, even close to aligning with one of them. But you end up championing the guy that you think can, in this case, do the most damage to the establishment. And the establishment has become so significant, so pervasive in people's lives that, you know, it is going to be divisive. We are going to have to deal with these divisions for a long, long time to come, until the state somehow gets rolled back significantly and becomes an insignificant part of people's lives.
Well, I don't see how it happens in England. Britain, I just don't see how it's just too entrenched. We haven't had a revolution for 400-500 years, and you know, the last civil war basically took 50 or 60 years.
Yes. You
know,
it wasn't quick.
It was from, I guess, the shipping tax in the early 17th century right through to the Glorious Revolution and the formation of the Bank of England at the end of the 17th century. So, the system is designed to protect the system in the UK.
Isn't it? Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, human nature, one of the most despicable aspects of human nature is this inherent desire to avoid personal responsibility. And so whether it's the whether it's organized religion or the state turns up and says, "Don't worry, we can fix your problems for you." And of course, people just are inclined to flock to such offers, aren't they? Where they don't have to exercise any personal responsibility. And that's the difference. I would like to think with an anarcho-capitalist philosophy is fundamentally it's embracing the concept of 100% personal responsibility and being willing to accept one's fate and accept everything that comes along.
Yeah, I mean, my kids are almost grown up now, and so I kind of want to leave the UK and just go and become a digital nomad. But
yeah,
I'm there's a lot about English culture and English history that I love, but
yeah,
I just tell my kids she's probably better off leaving.
Yeah, that's right.
And why pay, like, if you're a kid, 25 years, my eldest son is 23. He's just got his first job. And, how's he ever going to buy a house?
Yeah.
In London?
Yeah.
He's just not.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
I can't even afford to live where I grew up. And he's not going to be able to. And, it's just the whole of England's like that. And it's just, and meanwhile, he just pays so much money into a system that hasn't looked after him. Because it's left him in a position where he's not going to be able to buy a house for like 25 years and he's going to have to become a huge debt slave. And every time he earns any money, he has half of it confiscated from him and the other half he has devalued. So how's a young person supposed to work their way out of the thing? It's just hopeless. And it's all fiat, and Bitcoin fixes it and gold fixes it. But in the meantime, I'm telling him, go and work in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or even America or somewhere, but just go and work somewhere where taxes are low. And in 5 years' time, you'll just be in so much stronger a position than if you'd stayed somewhere where taxes are high.
Yeah, well, sound advice. Well, it's a question I often ask our guests on ANCAP Radio, Dominic, is, much as we embrace and understand the moral significance of ANCAP philosophy, we have to resign ourselves to the fact that in the foreseeable future, we ain't going to see anything that really, or any jurisdiction that one could describe as Ancapistan.
Well, I'll tell you what, there are tiny bits. So you've got Sark in the Channel Islands.
Yeah.
But the problem, like, there's no income tax, no VAT, no capital gains tax, blah, blah, blah. Population of 300. But the problem with Sark, there's no cars on the island. It's beautiful. But the problem with Sark is you've got to get there. So that means you've got to fly from London to Guernsey. And then from Guernsey, you've got to get a ferry to Sark. And then once you're on Sark, there's only like 400 people on the island. So it's hardly a bustling metropolis. And it is lovely. But I think if you live there full time, you'd go mad. And so while you gain in freedom in one sense, because you're in this place with no tax, you lose in freedom in another sense because you're on an island in the middle of nowhere. So there's a, and then you go, well, maybe Argentina might prove, if he turns it into a low tax thing. I don't know what his plans are, but I presume they involve low tax. Maybe there's a future in Argentina. There's definitely a future in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, because, where they are in the world, I think they could very easily turn themselves into the Switzerland of Asia, when all those countries on the Silk Road and in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and Russia and China, and they all want to transact not using the US dollar, and they're talking about using some kind of gold-backed currency. Well, the big issue is who's got the gold? But Russia and China can't keep continuously send plane loads of gold back and forth to each other. So they're going to need a third party who can look after it, who they all trust. Now, that might end up being Singapore, but I think the best chance is going to be Dubai and the UAE. So I think there's a future there, but at the same time, it's so soulless, and maybe I'm misjudging it, and it's turned a corner, and it just feels never felt organic and natural to me. It just sort of, it all feels a bit
artificial. Las Vegas.
Which but then again, I've only ever had a good time in Dubai, and I've only ever been well treated. I haven't been for 10 or 15 years, so maybe I should go back before I start holding court about it. But it's geographically, it looks like it's a real opportunity, and you know, in terms of tax, maybe a lot of people on my WhatsApp groups are talking about Saudi, how great a country Saudi wants to become. You know, it wants to rival them. So, you know, maybe that Arab Peninsula is going to be the future Europe. I don't know, but Ancapistan is I think it's one of these things that exists digitally and exists in the mind, and you have to become a non-dom and a digital nomad, and that way you live the Ancapistan dream. But you know, you can't go to Liberland or somewhere because, you know, it's just a muddy swamp, and it's a nice idea. But even if Liberland were to get borders and were to start building and all the rest of it, the chances of whatever it is recognizing it, who is it that has to recognize a country? It's not the IMF, one of those, the World Bank or someone, one of those, NATO or someone has to recognize it in order for it to become a country. And there's no way that NATO is going to start recognizing Ancapistan as a nation on point of principle.
It sounds a tad oxymoronic, trying to get Ancapistan recognized, doesn't it? So that's funny.
But so, I've never understood why some billionaire can't just go to like a government in Chad or somewhere and go, can I buy 50 square miles of desert? And build a nation, please.
Yes.
And I just, but you know, in the same way that America bought Alaska and the whole kind of central Louisiana bit of
Louisiana.
You know, the whole of Middle America was bought off France. You know, why can a billionaire not come and buy a country, some land in Chad or know, somewhere?
Well, I'm with you, but the problem you have, Dominic, is have you observed any billionaires that understand anarcho-capitalist philosophy?
Yeah, loads.
You do?
Yeah, loads of them.
Okay.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, but does he truly understand it?
He's retweeting videos of people. He retweeted a video of a man and a woman having sex, and you know, an absolutely beautiful woman, and the man, rather than look at the beautiful woman, was watching the Javier Milei speech at Davos.
I saw that. I saw that. That was wonderful, wasn't it?
And he's not stupid. And you know, there's loads of Bitcoin billionaires, and Peter Thiel's a bit of an ANCAP guy, and you know, he's trying to do the C study. There's loads of them.
Yeah.
Doug Casey.
All right. Yeah, sure. So why has that not happened then?
I don't know.
Why haven't they gone?
I really don't know.
It's
if I was Chad and somebody offered me you know, a load of money for a bit of land that's not being used by anyone, what's the problem?
Yeah. No, indeed. I spent a bit of time in Vanuatu with the vain or naive notion that we could acquire a decent chunk of land there for the purposes of and find a way to either, if not secede, formally secede through some financial transaction, at least set it up so you'd be left alone, you know. But it just the political side of things, notwithstanding the fact that there's something like 135 different tribes in Vanuatu and they can never agree, there's still a political structure in place that just wants to cling to every last bit of geography in the area, every last bit of landmass, you know. But I mean, I guess I wasn't in a position to offer them ridiculous money, but if there could be a point, I guess, financially, where they would finally say, okay, well, you can have that island and we'll leave you alone, and you'll fall out of our jurisdiction. So
if you go on Google Maps and look at Myanmar, in the Andaman Sea there, there's just hundreds, thousands, gazillions of islands.
Right.
And surely, you know, if you offer the most remote one or the most extreme one or the least strategic or whatever, offer them a load of money, Myanmar would take it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. So if we put that to one side, Dominic, then the big question is, you're sitting in London, you're sitting in the UK, I'm sitting in New Zealand. I'm being expedient sitting here because it's an English-speaking country. Whether we like it or not, the English system of law is as equitable and meaningful and rational as any on the face of the planet. One of the reasons I hang out here is because it's hidden away at the bottom of the planet and hopefully away from what I perceive as Northern Hemisphere madness. But
where are you? Whereabouts in New Zealand are you?
Well, right now, where I'm talking to you from, I'm in Queenstown. Do you know New Zealand? I'm in a rural area just outside of Queenstown, which is in
but you're
South
from South
Island.
Africa.
No, I'm from here. I was born here in New Zealand.
You've got a slight South African accent, or am I just not hearing you properly?
Oh no, I did spend quite a bit of time in the US, and I find that when you go to the US with a strange accent, on the East Coast they think you're a pom and become abusive, and on the West Coast they don't understand you, so you end up modifying your voice for some practical reasons. Right. So okay. I think it's residual that. No, it's here. Funnily enough, Peter Thiel, who you're talking about, both lives down the road and has a house down the road and is trying to build a big facility just over a hill from me. And there has been a number of other, very affluent, either Europeans or Americans turning up here, seeing New Zealand as its remoteness having currency. So, but
what's the tax? What's the overall tax burden in New Zealand?
Yeah, what is it? You're saying?
Yeah.
It's about 40%, 35-40%, somewhere sitting in that order there.
So it's quite high then.
It's high. We've had ridiculous inflation as a consequence of a hardcore socialist government printing money with gay abandon through the COVID madness and borrowing. We did have a conservative level, relatively speaking, of debt. That's all changed. And we just had an election. We've got a coalition government who does have the libertarian streaks through it. Fortunately, there is a libertarian party in New Zealand. It's got 12 members of parliament right now.
Out of 12, out of how many?
Out of 120, so 10%.
That's 10%. That's not bad.
It's very cool, actually, and when one reflects on it, we thought it might have been a bit higher at the end of the election, but their support just did taper off in the last couple of weeks. That's very positive, and they're out there chomping away, cutting government departments back, and doing some very positive things. But which often is certainly been the nature of New Zealand through its history, is you have this collectivist socialist push, and then you have some pushback, but the pushback is never far enough. And of course, we had a revolution here through the 80s, same time as UK had Thatcherism and the US had Reaganism, which was all very positive. But goodness me, through the mid from 2010 onwards, we saw that all those gains just disappear, which was just appalling. But my question is then, is you're living in London, I'm living in New Zealand, and the thing I find with my peers and even ANCAP peers is that familiarity has a great currency. And so people where they've lived somewhere for a long period of time are disinclined to try and disappear and find another venue because they're sort of getting comfortable.
Yeah, we've been institutionalized.
And we've been institutionalized. But so then the question is, how does one live an ANCAP existence in a non-ANCAP jurisdiction? So if you're spending your time in the UK, you do a fantastic job speaking out and doing your stuff and advancing this philosophy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's sometimes I feel like I may as well howl at the moon for the amount of people that listen.
well, I think I think you should be a little bit more optimistic. So, I've been your agent in New Zealand for the last several months. So,
thank you.
I hope your book sales in New Zealand have slowly ticked up. So,
I'm going to write a song about my career, and it's going to be called "Howling at the Moon."
Yeah, there you go. Oh well, but at least it sates you, doesn't it? It gives you some comfort. But it is. I mean, one can still, and I mean, if enough people do it, as we talked about with you, Liz, and so forth, it does cause people to think, doesn't it? It does. I mean, you move minds, whether you like it or not. There'll be people listening here today who need to, obviously, as I've suggested, all need to go and watch on endless loop all your YouTube clips, but will be inspired by that, will be moved by that, will be caused to think more about this philosophy and understand, in particular, the significance of personal responsibility and just not looking to the state to do anything for you. So
I hope so. People, a lot of people say nice things, but a lot of people ignore me.
Yeah, well, that's because this journey, Dominic, is a rather long one, isn't it?
It is.
The path to
Ancapistan. It's a long. I can't even persuade my own family.
Yeah. Oh no! Now you're sounding terribly despondent.
Yeah, my own kids are calling me a fascist.
That's funny. Yeah. So, but you obviously, I mean, I'm sure you pay your taxes, and I'm sure you comply with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I think by the time the audit of my life is complete, about 15 or 20 years of it will have been spent working to pay for this incompetent state that we have. But
Yeah. No, that's the worst of it is we pay taxes to hasten our destruction, don't we?
Yeah.
Which is, yeah. No, well, I the place I'm talking from now is my little personal stand where I've built a wonderful sort of compound and home here in a rural property where I have no consents from anyone, and enjoy the fact that I can push back immensely on several aspects of the state. But
you don't need planning permission to build in New Zealand?
Oh yes, yes, you do. Planning permission is insane. You need literally a dozen reports on everything from your wastewater, your stormwater, your geotech. I mean, it just gets madder and madder. But I haven't bothered with any of those, and I've managed to. The only time the regulatory authorities decided they would visit me and try and beat me up was when I built a large tree house in a whole clump of trees where I'm sitting right now, and they were appalled that I built this without consent. And I explained to them that no, they had misunderstood me. All I had done was build a 1-for-1 scale model to see if I wanted to go ahead with the project. And so they stood there scratching their heads. Oh, so you may not go ahead with this. You may not keep this. I said, no, I haven't even thought about it yet. I just wanted to see if it looked good and if it would work. And so they disappeared. And so I haven't, fortunately, seen them again since. And so that was 15, 16 years ago. And I'm still living in my 1-for-1 scale model, Dominic. So which is delightful. So what advice can we give our listeners, Dominic, about how they can live an ANCAP life in a non-ANCAP world?
Leave. Wherever you are, leave.
There you go.
I'll tell you what, I genuinely believe this, and this is a good story. So this is, I'm part Italian. I have a lot of Italian friends, and I was talking to a friend of mine who was talking about his grandparents.
Yeah.
And they were contadini, peasants in Italy in the 60s. And they were what's called mezzadri, which would be a sharecropper. And what would happen is they owned no land, but they would be given permission to work a landowner's land, and 50% of everything they grew, they produced on the land. So whatever it is, the olives they grew, or the fruit they grew, or the meat they produced, whatever, they would give to the landowner, and 50% they could keep themselves, which would they would then take to market and sell, and the money they sold it for would be theirs to keep. And so they were basically the descendants of the serf. And no one had ever owned property. And in 1965, 1966, they up sticks. And remember, at the time, the Italian lira was a disaster. It kept inflating and all the rest of it. And they came to England. And there was a lot of Italians who went all over the world. They still do now. But in those days, there was quite a few who came to England. And they were quite protective union laws. So most Italians ended up working in small businesses, particularly in the catering trade, restaurants, cafes, that kind of thing. Or they worked for friends and family who had small businesses. And so my friend's granddad became a waiter. And then the following year, his wife came over, and she was did something in the catering trade as well. So they were probably being paid in cash. So they were avoiding a lot of the income tax that many would have had to pay, because they were being paid in the cash economy. But the money they were being paid in, the pound, was stronger than the lira, quite a long way stronger. And so 4 or 5 years later, 1970, they went back to Italy and they bought an apartment with the money they'd earned. All they'd been in the UK was waiters. They hadn't been anything special, just waiters. But working and saving in relatively sound money enabled them to buy property for the first time in that family's history.
How cool.
And then 5 or 6 years later, they bought some of the land that they had previously been mezzadri on. And the dynamic is very simple. You go somewhere else, you pay as little tax as you legitimately can, and you save in sound money. So you might be being paid in Argentinian pesos or Turkish lira or whatever crap currency it is, but just at the point of payment, you transfer as much as you can into gold or Bitcoin or some kind of hard sound money. And as long as you got, you're turning off the leak that is the tax, and you're turning off the leak that is inflation. So you're working and you're saving in hard money. You can transform your lot in as little as 5 or 10 years time. And you keep the proceeds of what you work for. And so that is my advice. Try and get paid in hard currency. And if you can't get paid in hard currency, transfer your money into hard sound money as quickly as you can after the point of payment, and make it a habit. So if you're paid $2,000 a month and you need $500-600 to live, or whatever it is, my figures are all out, but just make sure the other grand or the grand and a half, whatever it is, you save in strong currencies. And I promise you, over time, you will transform your lot.
No, that's wonderful advice. And of course, that's the advice you're giving, as you were saying, to your children, is to go to a place like Dubai, work like nuts, save money, and then enjoy the potential liberation that gives you back in a more familiar jurisdiction.
That used to be the American dream.
Yeah, indeed.
People left their country, they went to America, they worked, they got paid in sound money, and they got paid relatively low taxes, and they transformed their lot. And that's why we work. And that opportunity should be available to every young worker. And that opportunity is not here to the indigenous Western European.
No, there you go. Oh, well, that's fantastic advice, Dominic. And I hope that at least someone listening is going to get up today and dust off their passport and head to one of those jurisdictions to embrace that. So, as always, Dominic, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for turning up here. Dominic, do you to our listeners, follow Dominic on X or Twitter.
Yeah, you can follow me at Dominic Frisby and sign up. I've got 2 newsletters. One is for comedy, and that's Frisby's News. Or if you're interested in my financial stuff, that's theflyingfrisbee.com. And sign up for one of those or both of those, and I'd be glad to have you as a reader.
And to be inspired, watch Dominic's YouTube clips, because they are wonderfully entertaining and inspiring. And in terms of philosophy, Dominic, in terms of ANCAP philosophy and intellectually arming oneself with arguments for the madness and sanity, if not immorality, of taxation, you must read Dominic's book, Daylight Robbery: How Tax Shaped Our Past and Will Change Our Future. It's wonderfully written. It's a great, entertaining read, and it's philosophically inspiring. So, thank you, Dominic, and I hope that we catch up with you again sometime in the future. Are you playing soccer this evening, or is it a social event?
Later, I've got something I've got to do now, and then I'm going off to play football. Yeah, soccer.
Okay.
54 years old, still playing.
And is that indoors or outdoors tonight?
Outdoors, 6-a-side.
Is it fantastic? And a lit field, I take it, obviously. So
it'll be lit and AstroTurf.
Okay, great. All right. Well, best of luck with that. Okay.
Cheers, then.
Thank you, Dominic. Fantastic.
Bye.
Mark